All right, I'm live. Kinda. Oh, there we go. All right. Hello, hello, and welcome to our weekly live, where today we're going to be talking about toxic positivity. We're going to be talking about what toxic positivity is. We're going to be talking about how we can avoid being toxically positive, both to ourselves and in the context of others. And we're going to be talking about what it really looks like to be a true light worker. Okay? So again, I'm going to be saying some things that I know might make people uncomfortable and might make us feel challenged. And right now in the world, I think that is something we really need. So that's what I'm going to say. We're going to be talking about toxic positivity. I'm going to be sharing my views on it and where I think we enter dangerous territory in the hi baby in the spirituality world, especially the self-help world, the empowerment world, the law of attraction. We attract our own whatever. I'm going to be kind of confronting some of the ideas that I think in there that are really not helpful for humanity, and talking about how we can balance this idea of being positive and people empowering themselves and that absolutely being true without stepping into victim shaming and blaming, without stepping into ignorance, basically just true deep ignorance. Okay, so with everything that's going on in the world right now, we're seeing a lot of people talking about, well, okay, we're watching as the world slowly starts to wake up to a lot of injustices that have been a part of the human experience for a very, 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 very long time. And I'm not necessarily gonna make this video about one specific instance of human suffering that is coming to light right now. Because absolutely right now in the United States specifically, racism against black people is is being highlighted as a giant problem and something that has been systemically an issue for centuries. Okay? And this is a huge issue. This is a huge problem. And it is one of many problems we see on the planet right now. Because again, what also is happening in the Western world right now? We're waking up to the idea even that those of us who were raised in normal conditions, white skin, or like normal Christian, whatever, we got educated households, we're also traumatized. We didn't get our emotional needs met. We didn't get our psychological needs met. We tried to fit ourselves into this system, and we're all trying to recover from that. Right? We're looking at our grandparents and our parents who went to war, and we're like, whoa, that really, really messed them up. Like, they suffered deeply, 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 deep trauma from having to go to war. And they came home and they were shells of human beings. They didn't recover. And that's like a micro thing in the Western world, where we look at ourselves and we say, like, generally speaking, we have our physical needs met. For most of us who are watching this video, we experienced a reality where, like I said, we had our basic needs met and everything looked fine, and yet we're walking around traumatized and not loving ourselves and hating ourselves and self-sabotaging and coping and scapegoating, and we're talking about all this stuff that we're trying to improve with spirituality and and self-love and all of this, and we're looking, we're like, wow, okay, like this level of trauma from just emotional neglect and not understanding how the human emotional system works is massive, right? We're looking at it and we're like, it totally traumatized us, and it has a very negative effect on the way that we're living. So now let's put into context that we are people. Yeah, we're more than digestive tracts. We're not just right that. So again, we put this into the context of we are some of the most privileged in the sense of the society that we were raised in. For most of us, having our basic needs met was something that was going to happen. We got an education. We had a roof over our heads. We had clothes. We had food. And again, there may have been struggles. There may have been insecurities, and that is definitely a real issue. But like I say, like even if we just look at the people who it all looked fine on the surface, and we're saying these people have trauma. Okay, now let's think of the people who are born into situations where they're child slaves, where they're born into child war, like child soldiers. Let's think about the people who are born into situations where there's literally not clean water in your village, and everyone you know is going to get wiped out by Ebola. Let's think about the people who are born into incredibly oppressive regimes where women are expected to literally be slaves to the men in their life. They have to wear complete body covering clothing. They have no rights. They are not allowed to be alone. They're not allowed to be in a car by themselves. Okay? The level of human beings on the planet who are not anywhere near getting their basic human needs met at this point is still most of the humans. Okay? Those of us who were born and raised into situations where we basically had our basic needs met are the top 1% of humanity. We're not the norm. We're not the majority. We are very, very much in the minority in that. And we still are walking around saying, I got traumatized. There was abuse. It didn't meet my needs. Okay? And that's not to discount that. It's to say, if we're going to look at that and say, even with all of this, I was still traumatized. I still want to drink. I still want to abuse myself. I still cause harm to others. I still don't feel like I'm in a position where I could be of service to others, where I can think about the pain and the suffering of everyone else and how I can work to alleviate that, and where I can maybe let go of some of my comforts and some of the system that I was born into that makes me feel comfortable and all of these things, in order that others may have enough to live. Like, we're not even at that point yet. So, like I say, if we put this into context, this idea that light workers are talking about right now, that we all choose our life path before we're born, and the suffering that people are going through, and the absolutely, I just think, objectively stated positions of victimhood that they are in are just a part of their soul's growth, and we shouldn't intervene, and we shouldn't do anything about it. And if they really wanted to, they could just pull up their bootstraps and empower themselves and get themselves out of it. And they need to stop with this whole victim mentality that they have, that they're victims, because that's just a mindset that's keeping them stuck. Okay, go to the Middle East and tell that to a Muslim woman. Go to Africa and tell that to a little child who was just born number 12 in the family, and they don't have enough water or food for any of them. Just go tell them that this was just your soul's path, and you chose this, and so just empower yourself. If you really want to get out of this, little African child, you could just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Right? That sounds ridiculous, I hope. But we are not understanding that there's a fine line, and that there are certain circumstances in which you can empower yourself in your mindset. You can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. There is an opportunity for you to work your way out of this trauma that you're in. That exists. But it is not the norm. It is not the baseline. It is not the assumed position that humanity is in. And I believe that as light workers and people who were born into systems and a world of privilege, and we have to get used to this idea that privilege is real. Okay? And it's not something for us to feel guilty about, and it's not something for us to say. And privilege doesn't mean you didn't struggle. Privilege doesn't mean there weren't challenges you had to face. No one is saying that, okay? So when we get offended by the word privilege, we're making it mean that we just had everything handed to us on a silver platter, and we're just complaining. No, there are definitely, like I said, it's legit that people in the Western world are traumatized, and that the systems that we live in harm all of us. And no one is saying that isn't true. So relax. No one is saying that your struggle that you went through isn't true. No one is saying that you didn't have to work hard to get to where you are. No one is saying you didn't have to heal from what you went through. That's real, okay? It's totally real. And it is not this case for everyone. Okay? It just isn't. And what we need to recognize is those of us in positions of privilege. Okay, so those of us who can work our way out of the struggles that we're in. Those of us who can empower ourselves in our mindsets and then take different action to change our own lives. We need to absolutely understand that we are doing that on the backs of hundreds of years of people who fought to give us the right to fight our way out of these things. That we are not starting at the bottom of the mountain. We have to keep climbing the mountain, yes. But we are not at the bottom. We are not underwater like a lot of people on the planet are. We had the capacity to pull up our bootstraps and work our way out of our problems because of the privilege we already had when we were born. We had an unfair advantage in being able to empower ourselves. We had basic human rights. We had women's rights. We had the capacity to get educated, to check out of societal systems, to leave our religion, to leave our family, to get a different job, to leave our work and not know where the next paycheck was going to come from. Like, we need to understand that, yes, those things are scary and they are hard and they are, yes, but they are also a privileged position that we can even do that we can even take those steps and take those risks. means we're in a position of not like the rest of the world. So when we project that experience that we had of what it was like for us to work hard onto other people who are not in the same position as us, we are not being light workers. We are not being fair. We are not being objective. We are not understanding that they don't have the foundation to work hard and pull themselves up by their bootstraps and pull themselves up the way that we did. They don't have the basic foundation to blossom the way that we are blossoming. And that is what we should be focusing on as light workers. This is the other thing, right? This idea that this challenge is just something their soul needed for their soul's growth. Okay, can we think about that for a second? People who go through horrendous things, like Martin Luther King Jr., who was literally enslaved and imprisoned for racism, who comes out and says, I am not going to punish my abusers the way that they punished me. Okay, whoa. Huge. He had some sort of empowerment in himself where he decided, I'm not going to turn into violence the way that violence was done to me. Okay, so what did he learn there? He learned that this violence is the problem. This abuse of power on the behalf of human beings is not natural suffering, is human-created suffering. And we have a choice to end those cycles of abuse so that everyone has a better chance at finding a way of life that will help them live and thrive. Okay, so let's look at that. When people who go through really serious, horrible situations and come out the other side having their soul grow, they all come out the other side being like, this abuse shouldn't be. I'm not gonna continue this abuse. That's basically the bottom line thing that everyone who goes through one of these horrible things and their soul grows, that's the boiled down version of what they take from it. This abuse is unnecessary. Let's not do that anymore. Every single person who comes out of a horrible, traumatizing situation where they were absolutely abused at the hands of other human beings come out, and when we say they grew from it, what we mean is they came out the other side and decided not to keep doing that. Where most of the world, and this is why we continue to have these systems over and over and over again, people are traumatized, people are abused, people are treated in these horrible human on human abuse ways. And what do? They come out the other side and become the abuser. Or they become so disempowered because of that abuse that they are then perpetual victims to other people who abuse them like that. So maybe they get out of this specific marriage or this specific whatever, and then they just end up in another situation like that because they don't know how else to be. Their entire identity is wrapped up. Their entire way of viewing themselves, their entire way of viewing the world, their entire way of being has been programmed by this abuse that they can't help but perpetuate it. Either by continuing to allow themselves to be abused, again, I'm not saying that the way that everyone else is saying that. I'm saying that in the way that, like, their psychology and their perception and their way of being is so deeply programmed that they are deeply susceptible to choosing those kinds of relationships and being in those kinds of situations and not being able to get themselves out into something better. Or, like I say, they become the abuser. They were so deeply abused that the only way that they can feel empowered, the only way that they can feel better, is to then become the abuser. That's how they feel safe. And so we see this over and over and over and over and over again. As wars happen in countries, it's just constantly, we were abused, so we become the abusers. We were victimized, so we become the victimizers. It's a constant cycle of abuse. It's a cycle of abuse. Human on human abuse is a cycle. And like I said, when we look at someone and we say, look at their soul grew from that, what do they say? What does that mean? They stopped the abuse. So now we as light workers who look at human on human abuse, who look at people who are saying, look, this isn't just life circumstances. Because this is the thing. We all need to recognize that life in real reality, when humans are not being antagonistic to other humans, life in real reality is going to be challenging a freaking enough. There's going to be weather. There's going to be natural disaster. There's going to be chaos. There's going to be things we don't understand. We do not need to artificially challenge each other by being actual antagonists to one another in order for our souls to grow. That is a complete crazy thing to think when we really look at it, because that's what we're saying. When we say they could just pull themselves up by their bootstraps, they are just in their victim mentality, this is for their soul's growth, and if we look at their astrology chart, they chose this for themselves, so why should we bother intervening? Why should we say, yeah, let's stand with them against this abuse that they're being perpetuated by other human beings with? Because their soul will have enough opportunity to grow without human antagonism. That is, can we wrap our minds around that? Life is hard enough by itself. Okay? The fact that we even have figured out how to create shelter and get ourselves out of the food chain, how long did that take humans? Thinking about how long humans have been around to the turn of the Industrial Revolution where we finally got out of the food chain. How long did that frickin' take us? And we don't have an entire world yet where all humans are out of the food chain, do we? We haven't actually solved it for everyone. We are in a major minority for those of us who don't have to worry about getting eaten by something tomorrow. Like, just think about that for a second. We haven't even taken humanity out of the food chain as a humanity. We've taken a section of humanity out of the food chain. And again, us lovely, in our Western world bubble people who are anti-vaccine and anti-medicine. Okay, we're privileged to be able to say, I'm going to nourish my body with food and water and air and sunshine and rest instead of taking medicine. Don't go tell that to the woman in India who literally has 18 children and they live in a shack and the water is poisoned. Tell her, oh, you're sick? You shouldn't take a vaccine. You shouldn't take medicine. That's evil pharmacology. No. She has no other option. It's a privilege. So again, does that mean that us in the West shouldn't be taking responsibility for our health and shouldn't be educating ourselves on long-term nutrition? Of course not. But let's look at this. Medicine and sanitation is what got us to the place where we can live into our 40s, into our 50s, into our 60s, and get these chronic diseases. Then we can say, Maybe there's link to diet. Maybe there's link to lifestyle. And we have the privilege to make the changes to our diets and to our lifestyles that could actually support us in not having these diseases and not needing medication. Okay, so again, that is not the same situation as starving mother in Africa. It's not the same. So applying our solution to their circumstance doesn't make sense, because we didn't do what we're doing now when we were in their position. That is something we need to very deeply consider. We did not do for ourselves when we were in their position what we're doing for ourselves now in this position. Right? Organic farming wasn't the solution when everyone was dying from polio. Medicine was. Sanitation was. And we need to think about that. What did we actually do when we were in their position? And that's what I'm saying. It's like most of us are so disconnected from that. My generation especially, we've never seen that. We've never seen, like, COVID-19 is the first outbreak of anything we've ever seen. And we all think it's a hoax because we're so in our bubbles where we have such great immunity and access to medicine. And if we were wrong about it being a hoax and we got sick, we're fine. Whoops, we can go to the doctor. And that is not the situation for, like I said, 98% of the world. So, like, all these conspiracy theories and all this stuff, it's like you're looking at it from your perspective and assuming that the rest of the world is just crazy or lazy or fear-based and stupid. And that is ignorant. That is completely ignorant. And we have to call ourselves out on that. That's not being a light worker. That's the opposite of being a light worker. That's being judgmental. And that's standing on the side of the oppressors. Because, again, absolutely, we can empower ourselves inside of ourselves that I'm not going to be a victim. I'm going to stand up for what's right. I'm going to stand up for my rights. I'm going to stand against my abusers. And again, we need to recognize too that most of us in the Western world, when we're standing against our abusers, we're not in life and death situations. It can feel like it, but most of us, we're going to stand up against our abusive boss and they're going to fire us. We can get another job. We're not standing up against our husband in a community where if we piss him off, he can kill us and everyone's fine with that. That exists in the world, by the way. Right? That woman is not going to start a mommy blog and get some money and empower herself and just get out of the situation. Hello. Her life is actually in her hands. And she probably has children. She's being abused by that man. She can't just empower herself and get out. The system is set up so that she cannot. And so please, my light worker friends, understand that the system that gave you the capacity to empower yourself with your mindset, that gave you the capacity to work hard and work your way out of that shitty marriage, to work your way out of that depression, to work your way out of that sickness. Good on you for doing it. Amazing. I'm so happy for you. That is actually true. You worked hard. I validate that. But holy shit, that is not the circumstance of most people on the planet. And we need to check ourselves. Because this is gross or ignorant, or I don't know, I'm feeling offended by it. I admit I'm triggered by this. Because no, the system that gave you the capacity to do that, you need to understand you had a system that gave you the capacity to do that. You were operating within a system that gave you the capacity to do that. The fact that you could go on a meditation retreat, the fact that you could leave your husband or your wife or your abusive spouse, the fact that you could start that blog or start that small business and it could actually become something, the fact that you could get a loan to go back to school, the fact that you could change your diet, the fact that you could change your lifestyle, the fact that you could rest, the fact that you could work hard to get yourself out of where you were, means you were in a system that was supportive of your growth on some level. And that is not the same for everybody. Black people in America are saying the system is set up so that we don't have the capacity to work our way out of what we're in. It is not that we're not empowering ourselves. It's not that we're just in a victim mentality. No, it's even when we empower ourselves, even when we do everything possible to get out of this, we're still in a white man's world where we're given permission to get out, if at all. That is not the same. So what they're saying is, we are just asking for the same system. We're not asking for a better system than you. We're not asking for advantages you don't have. We're asking for the minimum system that you have. So no, they are not just in a victim mentality. And for all of them that decide they're not going to perpetuate the abuses, good for them. But that doesn't guarantee that now some great thing happens in their life. If they step out of victim mentality and decide that they're not going to repeat the cycles of abuse, they're going to try to go to school, they still have so many barriers in their way that you, in your position, do not have. And that's not fair, and it's not necessary. It's not necessary for growth. It's not necessary for humanity to be antagonistic towards humanity so that humanity can grow. At what point do we have to look at the suffering that we are causing each other? How much worse does this need to get before we say, no, it's just that the system isn't fair and the system needs to change? And it's the people who are benefiting from the system that need to change the system. Because it's not going to be the people at the top. Okay? Of course, the Jeff Bezos of the world are not going to step down from their positions of power. They're not. Because again, from my perspective, I'm just going to say from my perspective, okay? No one has to agree with me. But from my perspective, the people at the top of this system that is absolutely running so many of the other oppressive systems that happen in the world are just as traumatized and deeply not okay in themselves as the people at the bottom. They're mirror images of each other. The people who are taking the most, who are abusing the most, whose systems are objectively causing harm to everyone below them, in my view, are deeply traumatized human beings. They're hurting, they were abused, they were born and raised into such an abusive system that their humanity is totally crunched up. They can't feel. Because if they were to feel, they would feel the weight of how horrible what they are doing is, in not a moral sense, in just how much harm it is causing. And it would crush them. It would destroy them. If any of you have ever read Martha Beck's latest book, Diana herself, she has a character in there, the narcissistic character essentially, who at some point in the book recognizes what he's doing. And she very, very beautifully illustrates this character of he felt like he was the victim. He's this macho bravado, winner take all, killing people, abusing, just what we would think of as an abuser, a narcissist, a bad person. And she so beautifully illustrates what's really going on in his psychology. He literally feels like that's the only way there is to survive. That's the only way to get his needs met. That's the only way. He was programmed from birth. And he's so shut off to his emotions and so shut off to his feelings. He's like, when people out there say that there are people who are lizard people, this is what I think they mean. That he's like literally operating from brainstem. Because if he had any of his humanity on board, it killed him. It literally, when he connected with his feelings, he was so overwhelmed with the pain and the suffering of himself and the pain and the suffering that he was causing through living his way of being, that it literally destroyed him. And that's exactly what's going on with the people at the top. They are so disconnected because the system that they're in is so against human surviving. It's so deeply painful because that's what pain does. Pain alerts us to where we are living out of alignment with the truth of reality. If we are in pain, we are out of sync with the structure of reality. We are hurting ourselves and hurting others. That is all pain is. It is not moral. It is not, it has no, it doesn't change itself for anyone or anything. It's binary. Pain and pleasure, true pain and true pleasure, simply boil down to, pain says I'm out of alignment with how reality is functioning. I'm breaking myself and others against the laws of reality. Pleasure is I'm in alignment with the laws. That's all it means. I'm either destroying myself or I'm building myself. I'm going against the structure, I'm going with the structure. I'm devolving, I'm evolving. That's it. So people who are in this system that we have created, if they were to start to feel, they would be crushed by it. They can't feel it. They can't look at it. That's why we look at these people and we look at them and we're like, are they zombies? Like, how are they not feeling what they're doing? Because they're so at the top of such a destructive system that if they were to feel it, it would destroy them. And then we have the people at the bottom who are being destroyed, right? Who are saying, look, this isn't fair. You being at the top necessitates that I suffer. You being where you are and having what you have necessitates that I don't have what I need. Necessitates that you are abusing me. Necessitates that you created a system that keeps me stuck where I am. That you are antagonistic to my growth out of this. Right? That the American dream is not for everyone. It absolutely isn't. It requires that a large portion of the population, yes, they are not living by natural law. Well, I mean, they are. They're suffering the way that they should be suffering. They are killing themselves, destroying themselves the way, because this is what I'm saying, right? Like, all the money in the world doesn't protect you from having a heart attack. All the money in the world. Yes, developmental trauma and insufficient nurturing are the first signs of this. And so, again, as light workers, what is our job? We need to be real. Actually real. No. Okay? No, 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 no. Do everyone just choose their life path and let's just let humanity suffer? No. When we are a collective, as much as we want to believe we're all just individuals having our individual experience, that's true. We are individuals having our individual experience, and we are a collective who are intimately connected. Every empath will tell you this. Every person who's connected to their own humanity, who's connected to their feelings, right? So the people in the middle, we have enough that our basic needs are met, we have enough that we can start to think about things like purpose and meaning and what is the meaning of life. The century of the self. When humanity started to come into this middle class where we had the basic needs met and there's no more war necessarily that we're in, and all this stuff, we thought we were going to be happy. And what actually happened is we all started having an existential crisis. We all started having to like, whoa, okay, all the stuff and all the security and the opulence and the parties and all this isn't making me happy. There's something more. I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling anxious. That was a humanity waking up to its humanity. We were coming out of survival threat instinct of just me, what do I need to do to survive? And we started feeling, whoa, okay, there's like way more to life than this. We're all connected, right? And sensitive people are not sensitive. We're just aware of a greater level of stimuli than the average human being. Sensitive people are picking up on the misalignments of the system, not just our own misalignment, not just our own pain and pleasure, but the system, the humanity that we are a part of, that we are intimately connected with. So if you are a sensitive person and you're feeling pain and anxiety and depression all the time, some of it's not yours, in the sense of it's not just what you are doing in your day-to-day life. And this is the thing. So we learned back in the 40s that we were going to distract and disconnect. Exactly what Ascension 444 just said. Distraction and disconnection from our true selves. We started having an existential crisis, and rather than facing it, we were like, no, we don't want to face it. We don't know what to do with this. So now companies are going to start to sell us not products that are durable and that are going to last for a long time. They're going to sell us products that mean something about us, that give us identity, that give us connection, that make us a part of the group, that but also unique. You see? The capitalist society just said, okay, if you're going to have an existential crisis and what you want now is meaning and purpose, we can sell that to you. Born was the self-help movement. Born, yeah, you see, was all this, okay, you feel like shit about yourself. I can sell you the solution to that. We can help you with that. We can do that for you. Instead of, okay, what's really going on? Maybe this system doesn't work. Maybe we're seeing that the pain of all of humanity is our pain. So like I say, it's not the people at the top that are going to change. They're so stuck in their trauma. They are so deeply traumatized in order to have gotten to the top of such an abhorrent system. They have to be suffering deeply. They're not going to give it up. They're not going to see it. People at the bottom aren't going to work their way out. The system is designed to stop them. It's us in the middle that are going to make the change. We need to listen to what the people who are the most marginalized in our societies, in our world, are saying about what it's like to be them. We need to stop projecting our experience onto them. You could just do what I did. No, they can't. No, they frickin' can't. Stop it. Like, really, stop it. Wake up. Listen to their point of view, not your point of view. Because your point of view is not their point of view. Your life experience is very different from their life experience. And we need to listen to people who have a completely different life experience than us. And it's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. It's going to be uncomfortable. And that's good. Right? Like I saw a quote the other day that said, if it costs you your peace, it's too expensive. And I'm like, toxic positivity. We in the middle can afford to have a little bit of disruption to our peace. Because if our peace is built on the backs of others not having what they need, it is not peace. It's numbness. If your peace is built upon the backs of other people not having what they need. It is not peace. That's numb. Don't confuse numb with peace. Don't confuse I'm not looking at it and therefore I feel fine with peace. Peace will come from I'm doing everything that I practicably can to make this world a better place for everyone. And we need to understand again that when we're doing the right thing for ourselves, we're doing the right thing for everyone because we are connected. So if what we are doing to help make this world a better place isn't helping make our world a better place, then it's not helping anyone else, right? So martyring ourselves and overdoing it and overgiving, of course, we're not going to be the saviors. This is not about savior complex. This is about how do I align my life? So this is where being a light worker comes in. It's a fine balance. We're not going out and saying, I am going to change the whole world. Because of course we're not. The world is not going to change based on an individual, a group. No. The world, the systems, everything we have is a collection of individuals. It's a collective. It's what the majority is agreeing to. And yes, there are militaries and governments and places where it's violent. It's very violent. And to overthrow that and to create something new is violent. And that is something, again, we need to look at. We are in dire situations in some places of the world. And that's reality. So where we are in our middle class Western bubble, what can we do practically to actually be a light worker? Well, first thing, we need to listen. We need to listen to people who are in situations that are not like us. We need to stop projecting our position, our life circumstances onto everyone around us and just say, you can just do what like, really think about it. That woman in Africa is not going to start her mommy blog and become a millionaire and just work her way out. That's not a thing. The people who are telling us that there are systems that are keeping them stuck where they are do not need us to say, you're just in your victim mentality and you just need to work your way out. That is ridiculous. We need to listen. And then we need to really reflect on how our lifestyle and the choices we are making are contributing to that. How much Netflix are we frickin' watching? What companies are we supporting? And how do they run their business? Why are you buying things off of Amazon when you could go to the store? Like, we need to start to recognize that, especially in the Western world, we are voting with our dollars. We are voting with our time. We are voting with our attention. Every time we numb and distract ourselves, we are shutting ourselves off from our humanity. And it's hard. It's hard to feel. I understand. It's hard to face these things. But it is harder to live with these things. It is harder to see people who could help you out who won't, because they're so wrapped up in their own shit. We have the privilege to heal our traumas. We have the privilege to love ourselves safe, the privilege to eat better, to improve our lives in a way that make us better stewards to others. And it is going to wake you up. It is. When you're doing your path, you are going to wake up to the pain of everyone else. And if you're already a light worker and an empath and someone like this, you're already awake and aware of it. Now, what we need to do is we need to say, okay, practically, what can I do in my life? Where in my life can I start to make different choices, more aligned choices, and just take down my defenses and just listen to people. Just listen. Validate. I hear you. And then you're going to get information about more things that you can do, because again, it's not going to be a group or a person or anything that changes these things. It's going to be each individual. If all the people in America decided to get on board with this Black Lives Matter thing and decided to just do what they could do, what they are capable of doing, every single person doing their little part to make it better would fix it overnight. It wouldn't take 1 or 2 or 3 groups of people doing something massive. If everyone gave a little bit of money to all of the causes that are going on, if everyone said, okay, I can give up some of my comforts to make it a little bit easier for other people. I can vote for this. I can educate myself and get out of my bubble of not enough and just contribute. If we all did that, it would change in an instant. And we need to understand that. So it's not about convincing the whole world to do what they can do. It's about what can you do? Because if you're one of the people who's doing everything you can do, then you're doing what you can do. So, right, you're not going to fix it. You are not going to change the system. None of us are. I'm not going to. But I'm going to do what I can do every single day. And what I can do might be more than what someone else can practically do. So we don't need to compare. Right? I have the capacity. I worked my way out. I live in Asia. I have disconnected from the system in so many ways. And that was what I could practically do. So I did it. And it's worked to make my life better and to make me a better steward of everyone. I consume less than everyone I know. So there's more for other people. It's just if everyone does their part. We all have a different part to play. But we can't say it's just them. No. We're either contributing to the system that's disempowering them, or we're contributing to the system that's empowering people. And as a light worker, we should never say, I'm okay with contributing to a system that disempowers people. And when you say, I'm not going to do anything about it, it's just their job to get themselves out, then you are. Because if we're in the middle class, we are benefiting from a system that keeps other people down. And that is just bottom line how it is. We benefited. Every single one of us who are listening to this have benefited on some level from the suppression of someone else. We know there's enough food on the planet for everyone to have food. And yet, we don't. Because human systems, not because of the world, not because of Earth, not because of reality. We have the technology and the amount of food to feed every human on this planet, and we don't. And that's not just for people's souls' growth. We don't because we're in trauma. We don't because we are traumatized and we don't feel safe. And so we need to heal that in ourselves. That's why self-love is the only thing I teach. Because the more you love yourself, truly, the more you truly love yourself, the more you actually get onto this, the more capacity you have to change your own way of being to ways that are going to serve you better and that are going to serve the world better. Because this is absolutely true. Most of us don't see that the ways in which we are harming ourselves are just the system that we took on, that we don't even see, and we blame ourselves as it must be something wrong with me that I can't live in this system. No. The reason you can't live in the system and be happy is because the system is fucked. That's reality. You just haven't been able to numb yourself to it. So what steps do you need to take to validate yourself, to love yourself, to own who and what you are and what you need? that are going to take you out of that system. Absolutely. That then help you create a new system where everyone can thrive. Because that's what self-love will do. It will give you the strength to leave these broken systems, to stop saying it's me that's broken, that I can't be in the system, and start saying, no, maybe it's the system that's broken, and maybe I need to change, to start to vote for a new system. Because again, if everyone did that, if we all opted out, Jeff Bezos can't be a billionaire without all of us supporting him. People in power can't stay in power when we all don't agree. So how are you agreeing? That's where your work is. And it's not working for you. Even if you literally selfishly do it, completely for yourself, that this isn't working for me, I'm going to change just for me. If you're doing it from a real place of true pain and true pleasure, it will be what's good for everyone. So we must do what we practically can do. We can stand for these people. We can stand up. We can listen. We can listen, and then what can I do? And we can love ourselves safe. That, yeah, it's going to mean change. And it's going to mean acknowledging the places where I have been complicit in this system. Globally and at home. And rather than hating myself and berating myself and shaming myself and having to go into spiritual bypassing and just saying, well, I'm just going to make believe that it's all just soul's growth, and what we're doing is we're just trying to not feel guilty when we say that. That's all that is. That's a person who's saying, I don't want to have to feel bad that I have benefited from a system that has hurt other people. Okay, we're going to have to come to terms with that. You didn't mean to. You were born into it. It's not your fault. But we need to wake up to it, and we do need to change. So you can change without that meaning you were a horrible person. You're not a horrible person. You were born into a system. It's not your fault. But it's your responsibility. It's our responsibility to heal in ourselves, our traumas, to love ourselves safe, so we can stop contributing to a system and benefiting from a system that is not fair for everybody. Okay? We need to get out of this idea that it's all just their soul's growth. No. Their soul will grow just fine with life circumstances. We don't need human antagonism for that. Okay? Ridiculous. It's okay. You feel guilty. Love yourself. It's not your fault. But we need to grow up. A true light worker sees where there are abuses of power going on, and we say no. We say no, and we say, where am I participating in this? And how can I change for the benefit of myself and everyone, because we're all connected. A real light worker can listen. A real light worker can say, your circumstances are not my circumstances. And I want you to have the circumstances I have. I want you to be in a position where all these things I'm saying about empowering yourself and all that stuff are true. And they're not right now. So let's work on that. Let's work on creating a world where that is reality. Because that is not the world we live in right now. And we have the power to create that. So that's what a light worker is. Give people a chance to be in a position where they can empower themselves and step out of their victim mentality. Let's make it fair enough that that's true. If that's really what you want, let's work towards that. So dismantle the system. Build a new one. Where is it hurting you? And how can you change so that it can be better for everybody? Okay? So that's toxic positivity. Don't. Check yourself. I understand. It's hard. It's hard to look at it. And it's hard to say we're contributing to it. But we have to. We have to. The world needs us to. And again, it's not saviorism. It's just being a decent human being. Those are our brothers and sisters. Bottom line. Everybody out there is you. Just living a different life. So how can you support them? By supporting yourself, loving yourself. This is what is required. Okay? So I'll see you next week on another live about pain. And until then, just do your self-love. We can heal this if we look at it. Okay? Mwah. Okay.